Let's see where we at. Where we at with this, man? About what? 6 o'clock? Bam. We could do that. We could do that. All right, all right. Another Friday, November 20th, 2020. It's going hard on the chart. We're going bar by bar. Today was a little bit of a slower day, so won't be as many bars, but there's still some moves, still some stuff that you can get going. But let's hop into it. So over the overnight pre-market, we're seeing a bull leg higher, um, just kind of connecting it off these lows. This is our first breakout side, and you can see there's a clear sort of two legs down. So I'm looking for a second entry here, but I don't love the fact that we're under the EMA. So any trade like that is going to be a little aggressive. You can see how all these bars, we get the first break here, and then again, we don't have a break yet. So, and something that is also kind of getting me to that place where I'm looking for the second entry is that when I showed up to the chart this morning, I was seeing this as a congestion zone. So when we broke outside, I was expecting the retest of this area, and then possibly we could even test the highs if we continue. So we get this doji bar here, and then you would have seen that break above. So, you know, um, I understand that trade. A second entry long, a doji after a breakout. We have some room to the EMA. We're probably going to test the breakout area. We have the big channel, first breakout, two legs back. So there's a lot of ideas going on right there. I don't think that signal bar is good enough to take if you're not ready to be pretty aggressive. So even though I was anticipating this trade, I ended up not even taking this trade. Um, but I like to note it because, like I said, when you have so many ideas come together, you end up with these just amazing trades. So that trade works pretty well. Our next best option is going to be some sort of like higher low, and we're going to try to continue our retest of the high. Now, here's what's happening here that's interesting to note. Although a break above here looks like a higher low, and technically it is, the bar that this red bar broke below is an inside bar. And if this is an inside bar, that makes this bar the signal bar, and we actually didn't break below that bar. So that's a subtle thing going on there where beyond the signal bar not being the best, although you might argue to take that in a certain scenario, what really is keeping me out is the fact that we have that inside bar break. That's not really going to be good enough. And if we do have a congestion zone here, I need to see a close above to trust the up move. I don't want to be the first buyer on a break above. So you're a little aggressive and a little early buying there. Um, and for a second there, I wanted to go long above this bar, but we're starting to go sideways. So that is a little concerning, but we did make that double bottom right there at 35.75.25. So if it would have broken above, I would have been into that, but it actually never broke above. So that trade just never triggered. And as we start to turn down, I'm looking at the EMA and I'm starting to see that the price action is on both sides of the EMA. And we're starting to get kind of flat with that EMA. Even over here, we do kind of get a turn down off this 35.78.50 level. So I would be aware of this. You might be a little too soon though. That's kind of the one downside about I traded the market. So I do have a little bit of a like bias and I'm trying to work with what I see. But it's you can clearly see that we're on both sides. So that alone should kind of get you in like, okay, maybe we're ranging. So as we continue, um, we get the lower high. This is a lower high trade. Um, it's not the best place. I understand why you would trade this, but it's really not the best spot. Um, you got to be aggressive to take this trade. So I watched that one go, and then I saw this one, and this is the irony, is that I let this trade go, but then I saw this trade and took it. And this one is definitely more sideways than this one is, and there's probably an established low 35.72. So this trade is not as good as this trade, but I did take this one. Um, that's a failed second entry. And that's what I said with the range. You're a little bit early on the range. A lot of how um, I was looking at this move was that we had like a bear leg through here, and then maybe one even through here. Uh, I missed. Hold up. I was kind of looking at a channel through there before I put the range up, which in hindsight isn't really right. I think the range is better. But the way I was playing it, I really had this on the chart. So I was really looking at this like two legs back, a break outside of the down channel, and we're going to come test these lows. So that's pretty much the only way I saw it. I didn't like seeing prices um, break below and then close back above. So although I was already in, I think the way I managed my risk, not that I think, the way I managed my risk is that I sized down on this trade because I knew it was kind of messy. I knew this isn't my best setup. So I didn't want to put too much risk in on this trade. Um, it took a little bit, but we ended up getting the scalp. And that's about it. So looking back, I think this one is going to be better than this one. But, both worked. Just depends on how you were reading the market. And then once we get above the EMA right here, you can clearly see that we kind of have a double bottom now. So now you for sure should be thinking about the range. And like I said, I probably would have had it somewhere like this, roughly. And I'd probably be playing something like this right now. And so if I am playing this, this is a higher low trade. Um, it's not a great setup in the technical sense in terms of it being a clean entry with this green bar breaking above this red bar. This red bar is the signal. But I will say we have talked about these red bars that get the buying at the end of the bar, and then we get a bar that pretty much goes from low to high. So if you're seeing that and you're seeing the range, that's a higher low. There is room to the highs. You might go long there. It's really, really kind of subjective. I didn't take that though. I didn't think that was the one. Look how the EMA is going right through all the price action. That really wasn't the one for me, but I understand why that trade works. And I understand the trade. I just not my setup. And that's the key on these types of days when we're just kind of in these tight ranges and price isn't so volatile. You're going to see trades that you understand but aren't your trade. And I feel like it's probably not a good idea to introduce these random trades. Try to stick to your plan no matter what. If that means you only get one or two trades, that's just what it is that day. But I wouldn't just start jumping into these trades because, oh, it's slow, so I need to get in. Because what happens is you get in on something kind of like not completely back tested, and then you take the L, and now you're sitting through a slow day trying to recover an L, and you're just in the wrong mind state. But moving forward here, we get a second entry short. But once again, with the way the bar is set up and the doji, you can be aggressive here, but I'm not going to mark it. You would just have to understand what's going on. But I don't like that trade. Um, I missed. You get a lower high here, but again, look, you can see how these bars are back to back to back. Now, only one of them is a doji, and that's, you can argue, is this red bar really a doji? But it's clear we're going back to back to back. Look at the EMA through all those prices. If you skipped this trade and you're just really, really looking for a trade, I feel like if I was going to take either one of these two, this is probably the better one, kind of. Because while this one has a bad signal, at least we're in this upper side of the range, so the probability is a little better. And this one has a good signal, but it's starting to trigger on the low side of the range. That's kind of risky. So, it's unfortunate, but honestly, I just feel like you should be skipping these trades. They're not really the setup. So it works well though, but that's not really what we're worried about. We're worried about taking the correct entries. We get a breakout side here. There's a second entry long there. It's a little early. The higher low is going to be better. I would rather see a nice like pin bar sort of trade. Let's see if we can get like a higher low. We don't get a higher low. We even get a reversal pattern. So with that reversal, I now want to give this bear trend some validity. And if you're being aggressive, I understand why you want to short here as well. You're a little early, but that's a trap. It's a second entry trap. Um, you would draw your line. We're off the key entry point. You can tell we tested it. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a real trend. It's a micro trend, and you should expect the break sooner than later. But that is a real there's a real thing there. So I understand why you would short that. Now we're getting away from that EMA, so that's probably your biggest risk on this trade is that we're probably going to pull back to the EMA at any point. But if you're seeing that reversal pattern, there is a possibility that maybe this is a range day. And so we might come test these lows or something like that. So if you're seeing that, I understand that trade. Um, I don't think you get a lot if you don't enter correctly. If you enter on a stop, 68.25, 66. Yeah, I mean, you get enough for a scalp, but you don't get much more than that. So, all in all, it was a little bit of an early trade and you don't even get much out of it. Definitely not the best idea we can find. But on days like today, there might not be a bunch of just great trades. So you should be patient and wait, but at some point you're going to have to enter if you want to get any of the opportunity. And what I would be doing on a day like this, I just make sure you size down. It's not a good day to take full risk, full clips until we get a really clean, smart setup. So now we do have something going on here. Because of the breakout pullback and we got multiple closes below, I treat this line like a real trend. I'm not discounting this trend because we're back in the range. So I am looking for a test of these lows. Um, in order for me to go long and start kind of trading this um, range, I'm going to need to see a reversal pattern or I'm going to need to see prices close above 35, 75, 75, which is like the origin point. I want to see one of those two things before I go long, or I want to see prices break the lows and then start to reverse, and then I'm cool going long. So in here, I'm not really looking for the long. And that's why it was kind of tough because I felt like you should be looking for a long, but I do have a trend and I got to just see if we respect it or not. That's just a first entry. Here you get a second entry short. Maybe what we can say about this is it's back to back to back. So right there, You would have to make sure you have enough room to scalp before these lows. Since we are on the lower side of this range, I know why you would consider shorting, but it just is getting a little confusing. So personally, I skipped this trade, even though I'm expecting this short. I skipped it. It wasn't clear enough to me. I was seeing this sort of micro zone. It just wasn't enough for me. It ends up being a trap. Um, but the reversal pattern hasn't happened. Okay, so the reversal pattern does happen. We're gonna have to zoom in. Off this low, we get a break above. Okay, so that's why I say the reversal technically hasn't happened. And that's why in this area, I'm not really trying to get into trades because it's just too hard to understand. This is our higher low, but when we broke above, we didn't close above. So when we broke below here, it's still the higher low. It's still the higher low. In order for this failure pattern to really have the weight that I would like, I want to see the higher low trade close above and then the failed second entry trade go below and then come back above. So when I see patterns like this, I really treat both of these swings as the higher low. So if I treat these swings like the higher low, I'm not really tempted to buy above there. You're still buying a breakout of a congestion zone. You're really more tempted to try to short up here, but um, given the overall context, you don't really want to short up there either. So it's kind of just an area. Oh, it's kind of like an area where you don't really want to be placing trades. Now, that's that idea of getting short in here. It looks way more obvious here, but we're still kind of confronted with the same problems. Not really enough room to scalp. Um, I am seeing the lower high. I am seeing these things, but it's just probably better to stay out. So if you're being aggressive, you're going to short this, but if you're just trying to find the most consistent setups, you're probably going to skip that. Um, we get a pause bar that doesn't break below, but on this bar, you would have seen the bar break above and then come lower. It's messy, but again, if you're being aggressive, I feel a lot better after seeing that break above fail. Look at the double top. Then once we broke out the low side down here, that made sense. And then now we can probably expect the move to these lows. And you got to think about it real time. You would have seen the next bar open, it would have ticked up, and then it would have started to trend down. And once you saw it trending down, starting getting to these closes, you'd probably have like a sell stop, a tick below, or maybe let it break, drop a limit order. It's aggressive because you're going to have some resistance here potentially. But if you're seeing everything the way like I'm seeing it, um, that one, I don't think it's a great trade, but I understand the momentum of that. That kind of makes some sense. And you get a nice run. Really, we're just looking to test those lows, but it does make a nice run. At this point, um, I kind of want to expand the range just in case maybe there's more going on. It's not obvious exactly where I should make my or not expand the range. I want to expand my trend. I kind of see a trend like this. That's probably what I'll work off of. There's maybe one off the highs as well. Um, they don't help me as much, especially when we've been ranging as much as we have. But I'll draw it and let's see if we get some nice touches. So, I mean, off the low side, it looks like we're breaking out the low side a little bit. Um, I'm going to focus on the blue one, but we'll leave the red one up for a little bit. And then if it starts getting too messy, I'm just going to take that off. Here we get some like sideways action, and then we get a nice move higher. Um, there's a real hidden like second entry long right here. If you look off this high, because that's the swing high, we get a first entry, second entry. And then with all of those matching lows, it's like an accumulation zone. And look how far from the EMA we are. You could have anticipated this long. Not quite in our strategy. I can make it make sense for the price action strategy, but you're really looking at a couple different things to get in right here. I saw this trade as well, but just a little bit too far outside of my playbook to take, so I skipped that. It's kind of one of those days. And then here, we start going sideways again, right? We got some highs there, probably a low on the close or on the open there. So, I mean, it's just like a little micro congestion zone. So I don't want to really go long or short right there. Now we get a huge sell off, but you would have been going short right into the EMA. Yes, we have that first breakout side. So at least prices are still fulfilling expectations. So that's kind of your consolation price. As you're drawing your lines, at least price is fulfilling your expectations. Now we're just hoping to get a clean setup. Uh, Going short here, the signal isn't super strong, but it's a breakout pullback. It's uh, it's hard to count off the high side. It's confusing. At the very least, it's confusing. So that kind of keeps me out. Lucky for us, it never breaks lower, so we don't really need to worry about it as much. And then here we are. I actually missed a good trade. We're back at the high side. Um, you can see off this low, first entry, pullback, second entry. So on this particular broader channel, we do get a setup here. And look how small that bar is. That bar is less than a point. And look how far from the EMA we are. That's a solid trade you want to take. Um, if you're seeing that bigger channel, you definitely want to take that. And then even if you're not seeing the bigger channel, there's a way to explain a way to get in this trade. Remember this congestion zone I drew? We had a false breakout to the low side, and then when we broke out the high side, we never get a breakout pullback. So after these big volatile bars, we get a small kind of doji. You should expect a retest of this breakout zone. So we use that idea all the time. So there's a couple ways to get in this trade. And if you're seeing both ways, you just need to go ahead and get short. So that's what we did. And that's what's nice. A lot of these trades are kind of hard, but if you can be patient, you'll find a much easier trade, and it'll pay you for all your waiting. And it looks like we were going to get some support off the EMA, but we never really break higher, so we just kind of keep going lower. So there is some sort of congestion zone in here as well. Um, a little tough to draw. I think the highs are more clear at 35.71.25. The lows aren't quite as obvious. And then here, there's like a reversal pattern right here, but I want to go short because we're in the channel. So I don't really want to go long. It gets a scalp though, but and then back in that congestion zone, you're buying a breakout. That's not really the trade. This trade makes more sense to lower high, but you're going into the EMA. So you would probably skip that as well. If you took that trade, 68.25, you you got your scalp. If you took this trade, you got your scalp, and it makes more sense overall. So that's good. But I don't know. Look at the EMA. It's like I don't even know what we're doing right now. I got to zoom out, and even when you zoom out, it's not really clear what we're doing. So for me, at least, if you can see something in this, go for it. But I don't want to even put money on the table in this sort of environment. My edge isn't big enough trading this type of environment. And you can see, I mean, there's a like if you would have took it, it would have worked. So, we're not saying that you're gonna just experience loss after loss after loss, because if you really stick to the game plan, I mean, the trade worked. But I would much rather catch an easy, nice swing than fight all the wicks and stuff in the middle of a range. So I don't know. I would just skip it all. I see the setups, but it's not really worth trading this to me. To me. But you can see we're making higher lows here, so there is a bottom here. I just maybe it's there. Maybe it's there. I don't want to clutter my chart up. I was already done trading by this point, so I wasn't even trying to like necessarily chart this too hard. But for the review, hopefully I can try and do a thorough job. So I would probably expand the range to look something like this at this point. Um, and there's a second entry long, but we've been showing some resistance off this line. Now, there's a little bit of room to get out, but there's not really enough room to get out before these um, highs. So I would just skip it. It works, but you don't really know that before the fact, and it's just getting so noisy. Who knows? But if we do have an overall range, there's a possibility. See how like nasty this chart's going to get. Mm, I don't like how we cut that. It doesn't fit amazing off the highs as well. So what we'll do is let's try to draw another one. Maybe we'll make it go off these wicks. I like that a little better. So there's a possibility that we have a trend going through here. The thing is, on this blue channel, we had a breakout side. We tried to go lower, but we couldn't. So that's a sign that maybe the bulls are in control right now. Um, and then we do have this bigger channel, but if this is a range, you can see we had a break outside the low side. So there's a potential we're going to get a break outside the high side. And in these ranges, oftentimes it just gets to the other side and then reverses. It doesn't break outside and move to a new low, which is kind of what's confirmed over here. Even on the smaller downtrend, we broke outside, we tried it, but we didn't even get it, and it just kept going. So because we had the reversal pattern right here, right? So um, I'm okay ignoring this bear channel. As we show support, that's a good sign. And then here, look at this low, a first entry. So the next break above will be a second entry. Let's see where we get it. See how we touch the trend line? We get a nice signal bar. We didn't quite touch the EMA, but we're showing support off this trend line. The only thing I don't like about the trade is that we're on the upper side of the range. So we're getting really aggressive to buy on the upper side. But if you see the channel, if you can understand that we were at the lows, so we probably will test the highs, that gives you a lot of space to get out. I would probably take this trade. Knowing that it's aggressive, I'm sizing down. I'm not trying to get too crazy, but that's a clear failed second entry short. So never breaks above, and then it sets up here where it like actually gets the EMA support. Honestly, I still like the trade. Uh, One, because we're starting to get a little bit lower. That's even better. That gives us more room to these highs. I want to see where that midline is. We might have even, no, um, we didn't quite do the midline though. Probably the midline is there. So we're bouncing off the midline. I would have really loved it if we came below the midline, but we're bouncing off that area. I still like that trade to the long side. Still doesn't trigger. Um, if you're not experienced, you probably don't want to keep doing this. But honestly, you could just keep moving your stop. Once it breaks above, it'll probably go. Here's another subtle idea to kind of help you stay in the trade or um, kind of still want to take the trade. See how this bar is inside of this bar, which is inside of this bar? So we make those congestion zones. So if we make that congestion zone, it would look like this. So you can see how you're getting long at the low of the congestion zone. So at the very, very, very least, I'm expecting the test of this open at 35.73 at the very least. But let's see if we even break above. At this point, it's been like 3 bars we haven't broken above. But if you're seeing that and you're seeing the support, you're probably still down to go long. Finally, it triggers, and then you get your scalp, no problem. You get a higher low here and a second entry long. I can't tell you why I don't like that. Something has to do with the range. If we break out, the breakout pullback hasn't happened. So buying here, you're a little early. I want to see the breakout pullback happen, and then I want to find ways to get long. I like getting long down here because I'm just fading the range, but buying above here, it's getting a little trickier. Um, that's about it though. So I could see why someone would buy that. I mean, it's a second entry, high or low, good signal. I see why you would buy that. I don't know if it works. See, I don't remember every trade, and it does work. And it could have been a lot simpler than the way I described it. It's really just a second entry long, a higher low. It just is what it is. Is it enough for your scalps? 74. I need 76.25. It actually doesn't get you. It's a 8 tick failure as of now. Does it go enough? No. So it looked like it was going to work, but if you weren't going for um, 1 point, it doesn't work. So how would you have avoided that trade? This would probably be the last one. It's about 8:30. How would you avoided this trade now that I'm looking at it again? So we did talk about the breakout pullback thing. Another thing you could have looked at is these highs. If you look at this high, that high is at 75.25. Um, my entry was 74. So I don't have enough room to exit before this high. Even though I would anticipate a break above, that's fine. But it's very, very interesting how many times a trade fails when there's not enough room to the high. Just the pure math of like, okay, I need this high to be at 76 or like 76.25. Just that pure little fact right there might help you stay out. And it does break, but it doesn't break enough. And those are some of those subtle rules that can help you filter a bad trade. So if you would have thought about that in the moment, that probably would have saved you. Now, what really would have saved you is not buying on the upper side of the range. But that's the hard part about these days is that, well, you bought this one. Why would you not buy this one? And so you really got to figure out your rules so that you can differentiate. Well, okay, well, this is a congestion zone, EMA support, plenty of room to the highs, while this one is a breakout of a congestion zone and there's not enough room to the highs. So they're both aggressive, but as we move further, this is less and less a trade you want to take. But hey, even if you take it, so what? You take your loss, keep it moving. Another trade is coming. But we probably won't cover it because that's about 8:48. Um, we try to stick to the first 2 hours. Wasn't It was kind of a boring trading day. I'm not gonna lie. I was really bored today. I took my trade up in here, and I was like not trying to hang around. So it was kind of boring. The trades were tough. If you stuck to the strategy, your first loser would have been that trade right there. And so if you would have taken every other trade, though, you still pretty profitable. So it wasn't an easy day, but there were the setups kind of in there. They would have worked. Um, but that's what I saw. It's not quite the market close yet, but we can just briefly go over just kind of how the rest of the day went. We sold off. We never get that lower high. It happens here, but that's not a good signal. And then we went sideways. So I'm not even worried about looking for a trade. We get a breakout. Let's see what the breakout pullback does. See that breakout pullback doesn't happen and we get a lower high. This lower high is close to the EMA, unfortunately. So you're not as interested in that. And you can see the range is like tightening. So it's like, it's not a good short. This failure pattern, maybe you're going to be aggressive, and that would have worked. I think just the failure at a certain point, like, and look how your entry is below the EMA, but it's still above the midline. Those are subtle clues. Um, but it's getting so tight, it's a little tough to read. But if maybe you were to short at that trade, um, you don't get much out of it. And you can see we're just really like in another range that's even tighter. So there's enough room to scalp from each side to each side, but you just got to wait on the setups down here and the setups up here. Then you got to be careful that if we do break out, there's probably a bigger range as well. So just got to really try to focus in. Get the breakout pullback. Get another breakout pullback of the bigger range. Maybe we're going to go test those lows. We tried, but we didn't get there. And then we back into the range. So really it ends up being more like a higher low. So that's the thing, about um, these markets is that it's just a little tricky, because really if you're looking at the full picture, you should be getting long. But if you get too caught up down in here, really you just end up missing trades as opposed to, and that's what I would prefer. I'd rather miss the trade than get a bunch of signals that fail. I'd rather just get a few signals, execute on them, and then miss a bunch of other signals because I'm so strict about the way I enter, than get a bunch of entries and then all day kind of breaking even, trying to, you know, scalp in and out and stuff like that. So I don't know. It was an okay day, not a super exciting day, but definitely a day that you could have made money. So you just follow your plan and it all works out. That's going to be it for me until next week. It's Kamal Hart signing out. See y'all.